All right, everyone, welcome back to our fourth episode of the Ibrahim and Kai podcast. And today we're going to talk about Blackmagic cinema camera, the pocket cinema
Yeah.
camera. And as far as I know, it's so Blackmagic Design is a Australian company that's based in Melbourne, and it was established in 2001. So almost like
Mm-hmm.
20 years ago. And I
Yeah.
feel I did some research, and apparently they're specialized in cinema hardware, right? So they have their audio hardware, right? They have their own equipment, Blackmagic. I'm not sure what they quite are, but as far as I know, they have some audio hardware equipment as well, along with their cinema camera. So they have the micro cinema camera, they have the Magic Pocket, and then they have
Mm-hmm.
their Ursa Mini, I think, the high end cinema camera. And yeah, they have also they have the Blackmagic color grading software,
Mm-hmm.
the DaVinci Resolve, sorry, and
Yeah.
they
Yeah. Yeah.
also have Blackmagic Fusion, which is apparently specialized for like VFX, right? And
But that
I
that's
guess
part of the DaVinci Resolve. Like
oh
I think
yeah,
the
is it?
Fusion is part of the DaVinci Resolve. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
really? Oh
Like
okay.
I think they combine everything in one editing program. So you just do
So
everything in one.
oh okay, I got it, got it. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe in the past they used to be separate, right?
Could be.
And now
I don't know
they.
about the past. I just started to
Mm,
use it like 2 years ago, but
mm-hmm.
it just works really well with the hardware since they make both software and hardware.
Yeah,
It's kind of
because
like the Mac works so well with the OS. It's kind of like
mm-hmm,
that.
mm-hmm. Yeah, because when I was editing, I would always see the DaVinci Blackmagic Fusion, and I
Yeah.
would always like I was wondering, like, when I was looking it up, like why are they separate? So apparently, I don't know, maybe they combine them together. But anyways, I guess
Mm-hmm.
the focus of today's episode is about the pretty much the Blackmagic Pocket cinema cameras, the 4K
The
6K has the
BMPCC 4K and
yes
6K, and the
exactly.
Pro, which just came out lately.
Yeah.
I'm just
So
wondering, like, have you ever tried any of the Blackmagic camera before? Yeah.
no, dude, I haven't. Honestly, like, I'm obsessed with this camera. I haven't tried it, and as far as I like, all my knowledge is basically composed of me seeing footage of what this camera is capable of, and
Uh-huh.
reading like a lot of doing a lot of research about the camera itself. So
Like
I
when the first one ever came out is the BMPCC. Like there was
yeah
nothing. I
yeah
don't know if you remember that one. It's that one is actually really small. Like
mm-hmm.
it's like kind of this size. I don't know how big is it, and it has the red record button in front of it. That
yeah
one is
yeah
pretty iconic though,
yeah
right? Yeah, I remember everyone was kind of crazy about it, and then came the 4K and 6K, which is actually not possible to put in your pocket, but
mm-hmm.
they still call it that.
Yeah. I guess it's about the concept that it's a mini cine camera, right? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's I guess like I knew about the previous ones, but the like
Mm-hmm.
when I was introduced to Blackmagic, they had already had the 4K 6K and 6K. They had already had the 4K and 6K. That's when I was introduced to Blackmagic. But then like when
Uh-huh.
I read, yeah, and apparently one of my friends used to own the like the previous version of the Blackmagic cinema cameras, and he used it for a while. He bought it and he used it for a while, and
Mm-hmm.
he just bought it for the raw video because you could shoot raw video. But he told me like about the limitations of that camera because you cannot. The storage is a problem. The battery life
Which
is
one
a
was it
problem.
though? Which
Uh,
which one exactly is it?
I think it's the so it's kind of like the 4K, the Blackmagic
Uh-huh.
Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, but
Uh-huh.
the previous version it can only shoot 1080p.
That's the one that I was just talking
Yeah,
about. I think that's the
exactly.
first version.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Oh
exactly
yeah,
the one
that
you're
one,
talking
like the
about.
battery is so bad back then. It's
Yeah,
still
yeah,
bad right now, but you
yeah.
cannot complain because
Mm-hmm.
you're shooting
You
raw.
can
What can you
rig
do?
it up, I guess.
Yeah,
Yes.
like I kind of want to share my experience using it
Mm-hmm.
because I already told you earlier, but like I've been using it for the past 2 years. Literally every project
Okay.
that
Yeah.
I did was either shot on the 4K or the 6K.
Mm-hmm.
They had other models like the Ursa, and they even came out the 12K. I don't know if you heard of it.
Yeah.
One of their model can shoot
Yeah.
12K. I've never
Yeah.
used any of those, but my experience from the 4K and 6K is just amazing. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's because it's just so good. You're gonna have to ignore all of the cons that they have. So people
Mm-hmm.
complain about the body, the build of it is made of plastic, and
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
complain that you probably heard of it. The battery is bad. You cannot tilt the screen. But I think what the value of the camera is just so good. You're gonna have to ignore all of that because they give you so much. It's just so much goodness. You can shoot in RAW, and the RAW file is just so easy to edit with and to color grade, and the user interface is so easy to use it. Like the first time I had it in my hand, I just knew how to use it. Like everything is just so simple. If it's the ISO, you just click the ISO and you can change the ISO. If it's the shutter speed, you just click the shutter speed, you can change it.
Yeah, man, the menu looks so easy to use. Yeah.
You can click RAW or you want ProRes. Okay, if it's RAW, what's the compression you want? You're like 1/12, 1/3. Like everything is just so easy to use. So I think the value of it is just insane. And they're one of those companies that really listen to
their
filmmakers,
consumers,
especially I like consumers and also filmmaker like us, especially the indie filmmakers, because I feel like they kind of know exactly what we needed. They're not like, obviously other companies like Red or Alexa, they listen to the consumer as well, but they're more focused on like Hollywood. But Blackmagic, I feel like they did for both. They did for you and I, for you, even maybe if you cannot afford it right now, you can still rent it very easily. It's not that expensive to rent it. So if you want to shoot something, you can just rent it. Even, I know you're working on a project right now.
Yeah,
if you really need to, if you really want to shoot on a Blackmagic, you can go rent it, for a couple of days. So yeah, like I think it's a very exciting time for people like us to get our hands on this camera. And actually, I did look up to what movies out there are shot on Blackmagic.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, I don't know if you watch Marvel movies. Do you watch any of the Marvel movies?
Yes, I have. I watched a couple.
Have you watched Logan?
I think I've watched clips from the film, but I know of the film. Yeah.
Like some of it's a pretty cinematic. Like, I think it's the most cinematic, at least for me, movies from all of the Marvel movies, because they didn't try to make it look super, like fictional. It looked pretty cinematic, and surprisingly, they actually use Blackmagic pocket cinema camera. Some shots are shot on a BMPCC, BMPCC, like the original BMPCC, and some of the footage were shot on Sony A7S2.
Holy smoke! So
it's a Hollywood movie, and Logan. It's a pretty good movie. You should go check it out. And also like Avengers, Age of Ultron, Jason Bourne. A lot of Hollywood movie were shot on the Blackmagic pocket cinema camera,
and I
not
think,
even like the Ursa.
Yeah. Do you know of the guy called Pony Smasher? The guy who directed.
Oh my god, I love that guy.
Yes.
I know he edited the Lights Out, right? He was like the director of Lights Out and Shazam.
Yeah. So he was the director of Shazam, and I think he used the Blackmagic 4K to shoot some of the clips in there. I'm not entirely sure of that, but I heard him talk about it, and I think he used it.
He even used the first generation. Like when he was shooting back then, when he was shooting his old short films on YouTube, he was using the BMPCC.
Yeah. You would see that in his videos. He would release a short film, and then he would release behind the scenes, and you can see that his process working.
That guy is amazing. Yeah.
He's always using the Blackmagic most of the times, I guess, for his short films.
He's like a real indie filmmaker that made it to Hollywood.
Yeah, I
probably
love it
the
so
only
much.
one that I know. I think in his videos he even mentioned that like he would prefer to use the BMPCC over like real cinema cameras or something like that, because you get more flexibility, but at the same time just so powerful. Because if you get the Red camera, you have to build it up, you have to put the screen,
you have to rig it
and everything, right? But Blackmagic, he can just go and just shoot whatever he wants.
But I guess
cinema quality.
I guess you're right, but I guess also for the Blackmagic you need some kind of rigging. But I agree with you, it wouldn't be as big and as as troublesome as those big cinema cameras, even if you rig it, right? It would still still be in a smaller size.
Like when we're doing like heavy shoots, we actually built it. We put all the big batteries. It's called the Sony 970 battery, and we put all the SSD. So it's pretty big. But honestly, if you really want to shoot it with just the body that it comes with, you buy a good SD card. And you get a lot of Canon batteries, and you can still shoot it like that. But it's just like very limited. Yeah.
So honestly, I wonder why would people use the SD cards when you can just plug in the SSDs, like those Samsung T5 SSDs. Like if you
Yeah.
can do that, why would people use the SD cards? But I mean, like the SD card would still save you some weight and volume, I guess, on the camera, but like it's still very small. Like you can just attach it onto the camera, and you would have like 1 terabytes of storage, and you don't have to worry about storage actually at all. So
One of the
I don't
reasons is
know.
because they wanted to put it. You can put the C fast also, by the way.
Yeah.
So they kind of want to put it on these gimbals, and sometimes when they build it too big, the cables and all of that stuff kind of
Oh,
disturb
okay,
the.
I got it.
Like you want a small gimbal, right? But
Yeah.
you can still put it on the gimbal with all of the cables. It's just much harder. So if you want it to be easy, you just don't put anything on.
Yeah.
So
What kind of gimbal do you guys use when you plug it like to the when you like put the Blackmagic on it? Like what kind of gimbal do you use
the
usually?
4K and the 6K is pretty different. I'm pretty sure you know about that also. Like the 6K is a bit thicker because it has
Yeah.
like a fan.
Okay.
So the gimbal that we used were Ronin S. You heard of it, Ronin S, and another brand
yeah.
called Zhiyun. Zhiyun, we use that a lot as well. And basically, because the BMPCC 6K is not as heavy as other cinema cameras, so it's kind of still considered as a DSLR, those mirrorless, but a bit heavier than those. So when we use those, we just try not to have a very heavy lens. We try to use a small prime lens or small kit lens. It works pretty well on a gimbal. And nowadays, they even came out with these Ronin SC, and I think the SC cannot handle the BMPCC. We had to use the Ronin S. So yeah, you might need to do some research if you're gonna use it for your short film.
Yeah. So I have the Xeon Weebill S, right? And I was wondering because I talked to another guy who had the same kind of gimbal, but he wasn't able to balance it on the Blackmagic Pocket 4K. And I've watched a guy on YouTube, and he was able to do that. And so I was wondering, like, what kind of Xeon do you guys use for the to balance the Pocket 4K or 6K perhaps?
The issue with
what kind of gimbal you were using?
The reason why it's so hard is that's part of the bad side of the BMPCC is it's very wide. It's so wide. So when usually those DSLR mirrorless is probably just like a square size, but the BMPCC is so wide that when you balance it,
rectangular.
You have to. The Ronin S comes with a thing to make it a bit taller. It's kind of hard to explain, but the width of it is just makes it very hard for you to balance it. So
it's tricky.
Yeah, you gotta check some tutorials on how to do that, but it's still very possible to do it. It's not impossible. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, and also, so I love the Blackmagic. I love the camera. I love the image quality that you can get out of this like little camera. But the thing that bugs me the most is the image stabilization, right? Here's why. Because I'm currently using the A7S, and it does not have IBIS, in-body image stabilization.
Yeah.
And it's driving me crazy, man. I cannot use it without the gimbal. Like, okay, like you can try as hard as you can holding it with your hands, and when you're shooting footage, and try to balance it as much as you can. But when you look at the footage, it's just so shaky and like it's so
it's
like
very wobbly, right?
buggy, right?
Yeah.
And when you add warp stabilizer in post, like sometimes you can do that, sometimes you can get away with it, but a lot of the times I try to stabilize my footage, and it just becomes really wobbly because the software is having a hard time balancing out all this shakiness and stabilizing all this kind of like very
Shakiness, basically.
shaky movement.
So you're talking about your A7S, right?
Yes, and I'm talking about my A7S, and I'm imagining the Blackmagic is the same because it does not have IBIS, right?
Yeah,
What has So what has been your experience like using the Blackmagic without the gimbal?
Oh, I
Right.
I do like handheld all the way for all of my shoot.
Okay. Okay.
So okay,
I'm wondering actually, like, how do you manage it?
here's a few tips. One is that when you get the lens, so usually a camera that has IBIS, you can match it with the lens that has image stabilization also. You know, some lens that
Okay.
has that. So whenever I
Yeah.
use the Blackmagic camera, I always get a lens that has image stabilization with the lens.
Okay, so that balances out the body,
It helps a
kind
lot.
of.
It helps a lot. You can see
Okay.
a significant difference. Like you
Okay.
just try with or without. Like because at the side of the lens you can turn it on and turn it off. So you just
Okay.
try both. And the thing is with the lens image stabilization, it's a bit fake, kind of. It's like you hold it right and it's stable, but the thing is when you move to a point, suddenly the image will just shift to another place. So it's kind of you kind of gotta have to get used to the way the lens image stabilization work. It's a bit different from
Okay.
IBIS, but once you get the hang of it, and the thing is, try to make the camera as heavy as possible. If it's heavy, you don't shake. Like it's shaking because it's very lightweight, right? So usually
Yeah.
I just use a big rig and I buy these handheld thing. I don't know
Yeah,
how
the
it's called.
small rig, the
Yeah.
small rig handle.
Yeah. I always
Yeah.
use a small rig handle, and the thing is, you gotta
I've seen a
put
lot of people use it. Yeah.
the quality is just so good. So whenever I shoot handheld, I always put the camera very near my body. So the only like way to shake it, like if you put it close, it doesn't shake that much. But it's so funny because sometimes when you're shooting and you're so nervous, the heartbeat
Yeah.
actually causes the vibration. Like
Yeah,
my,
yeah.
my heartbeat is so intense and it vibrates. So you
Yeah,
just
man,
gotta
it's
play
very
with it.
sensitive.
Yeah, it is very
It's
sensitive.
it's very sensitive, and you have to be really careful. And sometimes you think like, okay, there's no way this footage can be shaky.
It's so
I'm holding
shaky.
it like with all my power, and then like I'm trying as hard as I can to not get shakiness. And then when I look at it on my laptop, and then it almost all of a sudden it's like freaking
It's a disaster.
shaking all the way, dude. Yeah, it's a disaster.
The
It's
thing
crazy.
is, when you look through the
Um,
screen, it doesn't really look like it's shaking because you're kind of shaking with the camera itself. So you don't think that it's shaking. But when you put it on big screen, it's just like everywhere. It goes
yeah,
up.
yeah,
But
yeah.
the thing is, it's kind of weird to put IBIS on a cinema camera. It doesn't make sense because like cinema camera is kind of like you want it to be customizable. You want everything to be under your control. And like IBIS is kind of like a technology thing. Like it makes the decision for you. It decides how it's gonna like work. It's like autofocus. A lot of cinema camera, you don't see autofocus on it because they always have like a assistant that focus for you. So they decide how it's gonna work. But lately, a lot of people, filmmakers, they kind of want autofocus in cinema camera. That's why. But they don't have. BMPCC does have autofocus, but that's just like a single time. They don't have like a continuous autofocus. So, and yeah, I mean, that's what I meant. Like a lot of things
Yeah,
you
and I
want from
heard,
DSLR, you cannot find it on cinema camera. Yeah.
I heard also like it's really terrible. You cannot bank on it in any situation. So you
Don't
most
even
people
use it.
don't actually use it.
I tried
Yeah,
it once
yeah,
and it's so bad.
yeah.
But they do have
Actually, also,
they do
Go
have
ahead.
they do have a thing that you can turn on this focus assist. So you see this red line around your subject, so you know that your focus is right.
focus peaking.
Yeah.
And it has false colors, right?
It does. It does have everything you need.
Okay, that's amazing as well. Like also one of the things that I was looking up yesterday is like this comparison between the 6K and 4K, right? And I guess the main difference between both is the sensor, right? Because one of them uses the Micro Four Third and the other one uses the Super 35 sensor.
Yeah.
And so I was looking up like on some threads online on people that like discussing like whether the 4K is better and whether the 6K is better. And some of the people were saying actually if you want more variety in terms of what lenses can you use, then go with the 4K because you can use the Panasonic camera lenses like the GH5, GH4, which use a Micro Four Third.
Yeah.
And at the same time, you can add a Metapoints adapter or add a Viltrox adapter, which I have another question about for you. What kind of adapter you guys use? And you like when you use these adapters, you can also mount the Canon lenses on it when you use them.
So we
So,
use the
yeah.
6K. The 6K has an EF mount, and so we work
Yeah.
with all Canon lens. We can use a Canon cinema lens, all of the because we just use Canon lens, so we didn't have that problem. I think it really depends on what kind of filmmaker you are, because some people, they just like, not like cheap lens, but they like to use a variety of lens. But for the people that I work with, they are just used to certain lens, and they're all Canon. So we didn't really have an issue with the lens choice. Yeah. So
Yeah, and what kind of adapter? Oh, okay, you don't use the adapters.
no, we don't
anyways,
use adapter.
You just use the.
Yeah. So it just really depends on your needs. And the thing is, I actually prefer the 6K because Super 35 is actually almost APS-C. It's just like a tiny bit
Okay.
smaller. That's all. So you get.
But it's also.
Yeah. What was it?
It's also like it's got a cinematic quality to it. Like the frame size
Yeah.
is more rectangular than. It's more of a. It's more of the cinematic ratio than the APS-C or the full frame sensor, right? It's more wide. It's wider, I guess.
I'm
in a
not sure.
sense.
I'm not sure about that. But with
Really?
with the 6K, you can shoot in the panel. What is it called? Anamorphic. I forgot for a second. You can shoot in anamorphic with the 6K. So if you put the lens, it will like unstretch it for you. Because usually when you put the anamorphic lens, it's like stretched, right? So when you choose the setting of anamorphic, it unstretch it for you. And it has a lot more settings than the 4K. You can shoot 6K, 5K, 3K, and 2.5K, I think. And with the 2.5K, you can shoot like 120 FPS.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
So
That's nice.
I think the 6K is much more convenient, I'd say, than the 4K, but it's not much, but it's a little bit heavier. But with the 6K Pro, they kind of solve all the problems that both 4K and 6K had. They solve everything.
Yeah.
So they even have that little eyepiece that you can use. I don't know if you saw that one. You can
Yeah, the
see.
viewfinder.
Yeah, and that thing is so interesting because I heard from this amazing cinematographer that always worked with Tarantino. He said that he always used an eyepiece because he feels that when you, and which is, by the way, I find it very true. It's like when you're shooting, you get distracted by everything around. So if you just look at screen, you look at the screen, you're gonna see, although you think you're just looking at the screen, you're like subconsciously, you're still seeing everything around it. So when you look at the eyepiece, like the whole world is just that image. So you don't get distracted by the surroundings. And the director that I just worked with recently, he get distracted very easily. And I saw the effect of it because we were in a very big production and like the production looked amazing, but the camera is just shooting a small part. And in his mind, the image looks amazing, but he didn't really look deep into the footage that he's shooting. So he turned out it turned out he was really disappointed with the results. So this is one of the cases where I think that people should use the eyepiece to really get into the image instead of just looking at the screen. I'm a bit far from the topic, but yeah, like I'm glad that they have the eyepiece for the BMPCC 6K.
No, actually, that's that's actually a very interesting advice because I find it to be so useful because actually it makes total sense because you're putting yourself in the scene, right? In order to, you're not seeing anything, you're just seeing the frame. You're seeing what you're actually shooting.
Exactly.
And I think that's an interesting. I've never thought of this, but I guess one of the difficulties of this is that let's say you're shooting from the bottom, and then perhaps you cannot always use that with most of the cameras. It's gonna be difficult. You need a kind of customized viewfinder in order for you to that tilts maybe, and then allows you to to see the footage when you're shooting from perhaps like from a low angle, I guess. So
Yeah.
yeah, I guess it depends as well.
Yeah,
Like maybe you
you can
cannot.
use like for the external screen, you can put like this. They have this little hood around the screen, so you just put your
Yeah,
face
yeah,
inside the hood
I've seen it.
and you look into it. Also, that one works as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. I guess yeah, there are solutions around this.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess yeah, in the 6K Pro as well, they fixed most of the issues and most of the mistakes. The tilting screen, they fixed the battery, they added ND filters, which is freaking
Oh
amazing.
yeah, they had the ND
You don't have
filter.
to, yeah,
I
yeah,
forgot about it. Yeah.
yeah. You don't have to like carry ND filters around and attach them to your lenses. And yeah, they fixed. But also the size has, I've noticed that the size has gotten larger, which kind of makes me a bit
Is it larger?
which yes, it's a little bit larger. Yeah,
Oh.
if you notice. Which kind of, because I feel like the 6K and 4K are already somewhat larger than normal DSLR cameras.
Yeah.
And so if you make the 6K Pro a bit more larger, it's kind of a bit, it makes it a bit too much, I guess,
The
right?
pocket cinema
So
camera.
I don't know about that. Yeah. I guess it's kind of shifts towards the C70 side, the
Oh
Komodo
yeah.
side,
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
these kind of
It's kind
larger
of
cinema
even
cameras.
it's kind of competing with the Z cam. I don't know if you heard of the Z cam.
Yeah, I know about the Z camera.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Z cam is like, to me, it was back then, it was one of the biggest competitor of Blackmagic because in a lot of ways it does like kind of better if you, it depends on your needs. Like it can shoot 4K 120p, right? The Z cam, and it's like so small. It's kind of like
Yeah.
red. It
Yeah.
you have to customize it, otherwise it doesn't really work. But it can shoot
Yeah.
in RAW. It has Z RAW, and it's so cheap. But the only issue I had with it later on was the color science. Like the Blackmagic color science is just much better because
Amazing.
Yeah, because
Yeah, it's
at
beautiful.
first when I wasn't really into color grading, I always thought that, oh, you can just color grade it, so color science doesn't matter. You know, whatever color you get, you can color grade it. But it's actually pretty far from what I imagined because, like,
Really?
yeah, because with good color science, if you just add contrast and saturation, it'll already look amazing. Now, if you do that to a red footage or a Blackmagic footage, you just add contrast and saturation, it already looked done.
And the image looks
Yeah,
beautiful.
if it's well
Yeah.
exposed, like it already looks super beautiful. But with the wrong color science, you're gonna spend a lot of time fixing it, and
Yeah.
it
This is yeah.
it takes a lot of effort to get the result that you want to get. Yeah.
Yeah, this is what I always do with the Sony, my A7S.
Uh-huh.
I always shift the temperature towards the tint.
Uh-huh.
You know, the tint. I always tint it towards the green.
Yeah.
Because Sony's color science tends to have magenta in it all the time.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
crazy, dude. I always shift it. Like whenever I start color grading Sony,
Uh-huh.
I always shift it to the green side. Like because I want to take off all of that magenta, all of these magenta tones, right? And it drives me crazy with the footage, with the photos, right? And Sony's color science. But I guess, okay, like in terms of I guess in terms of workflow, good color science saves you some time. But I wouldn't say it's an excuse for you to not have good colors, if you know what I mean. Like you can always fix Sony's colors and match them into a Blackmagic colors, right? And I can't buy into, like, I cannot fully buy into the idea of this idea of like Canon being better than Sony because of their color science, because I'm always like, okay, if I am a good filmmaker or a good photographer, I need to be able to work with all kinds of tools, right?
Uh-huh.
And I need to be able to match all kinds of cameras, and I need to learn how to color grade things to match for cameras to match each other and look kind of similar.
Uh-huh.
But I guess in terms of comfortability and like in terms of workflow, I guess it's easier to have a good color science that allows you to get a good footage
Yeah, exactly.
out of the camera
That's
immediately.
actually,
Yeah.
to me, that's the whole point of good color science.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
the workflow, because if
100%.
with the bad one, see, like with the Sony Magenta, you just always have to,
Yeah.
change it to add,
Yeah.
was it to add,
There's a bit
green
of
tint?
workaround, yeah.
right?
Yeah, I add the green tint.
So that's kind of the thing, but the higher end the camera is, the better the color science. So like to me, the most important thing is the skin tone. So with like if
Yeah.
the skin tone hits the right spot, then other stuff doesn't really matter. Like I can deal with
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
other thing, but I'm
Because you
pretty
can
sure.
manipulate them later
Yeah,
on.
like Sony. The thing is, I didn't really face the issue of Sony's bad color science. Some people talked about it a
Mm-hmm.
lot, but I don't know if it's because my new model doesn't have the same type of color science. But I
I think
really
they fixed it in the recent models.
could be,
Yeah.
could be. It could be like a
Yeah,
software
but it
update.
used to be. It's also a big problem in the previous ones, like the A7S, A7S2, the R2, like these kinds of cameras. It's a
Mhm.
bit of an issue, especially with my camera. So you don't actually notice it from the camera, but when you start color grading, that's
Mhm.
when you kind of actually there's a lot of magentas in my footage.
Oh man.
So
So
yeah,
so
there's
so
a
both
way to
footage
solve it though.
or
Yeah,
photos? Like both videos and
the
photos?
photos and the footage, both.
Huh. Well, I
It
guess
always has this magenta tone.
like
Yeah.
for photos, when I first started using Sony cameras, I was just using it for photos. So like I take pictures in RAW, so I can just like, do like heavy editing. But with
Yeah, yeah.
videos, if the color science is bad, you kind of hurts, because
Mm-hmm.
it's a lot harder to color grade videos than photos because you have like
Yes,
a
100%,
10
dude.
second footage and there's a lot of colors happening at the same time. You cannot
Yes,
just change one thing.
100%. And speaking of color grading photos,
Mm-hmm.
I am freaking tired of color grading compressed footage, right?
Uh-huh.
Because I don't know, man. I love color grading photos
Mm-hmm.
because when you have raw images, you have so much flexibility in the image, and you can push it as much as you can, and you can add colors and remove colors, and the image still looks clean.
Yeah.
But with islog footage, these like compressed XAVC
Mm-hmm.
S formats, you just cannot go as far as you can with your raw photos, man. And so this is one of the reasons I love the Blackmagic, because you can shoot raw internally from the camera,
Yeah.
and you have that like crazy flexibility, dude, and you can do whatever you want in post, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's crazy. I feel like, bro, with like at this point with 32-bit
Mm-hmm.
audio
Mm-hmm.
and raw video, I mean, the only thing you probably need now is
A skill.
a camera that pulls focus. Yeah, yeah. A camera that pulls focus, and you have a freaking, I mean, there's no need to have a cinematographer anymore, right? You can
Yeah.
shift focus and post, I guess.
Man, if they have
Change
autofocus,
colors.
if they have good autofocus, it's done, man. It's done. They
Yes.
they,
Yes.
they took the whole market, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, one of the things that also makes me wonder is that Blackmagic, their cameras shoot in 12-bit, right? And I'm wondering why are other camera companies not doing that? Like Sony recently introduced the 10-bit, right? It feels like they're not on the same level anymore, right? Like 12-bit, there's a huge difference between 12-bit and 10-bit, I guess. And
Yeah.
and when you have more colors, the more colors you have, the better the image looks, because the more rich it looks.
Yeah,
right?
the
You have
details in the
more
colors.
tones in the image.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I'm always like wondering why are other camera companies not including this?
I think
So
the reason is um, I don't think it's a conspiracy. I truly believe it's marketing issues because
yeah,
the Sony cameras, both Sony and Canon, they have cinema camera line and this mirrorless hybrid camera line. And so they kind of don't want them to compete each other. So if your Sony S3, A7S3 can shoot everything that their cinema line can do, then who's going to buy the cinema line? And I think like filmmakers, they would know some difference, but like the closer they are, the more similar they are to each other, the less you're going to buy the more expensive one. So I feel like, yeah, I was wondering why they don't put by the way, can the A7S3 shoot raw footage?
I think it can shoot ProRes as
Uh-huh.
far as I know, and for RAW you need an external recorder like an Atomos Ninja 5 or something.
Yeah, because like I was back in the days when like 5 years ago, I guess you can you have to hack a Canon 5D to shoot raw footage, But the fact that we can hack and shoot raw, doesn't that mean that they can actually shoot raw? So why don't they let us shoot raw? So like we've been asking those same kind of questions, but I feel like another reason why they don't do that is that maybe having the capability of shooting raw in a small form factor might overheat, and they might have some technical issue because with a big camera you can put a lot of like technology inside, but the smaller the camera is probably way harder. So I feel like these two might be the reason. One is marketing issue. The second one is like the technology doesn't work well. Because if you look at the Canon R5, even like the R5 is like, it's just so good. They still have overheating issue.
Yeah.
That means that the technology is just not there yet, right? So imagine, like I tried the R5, the 8K, the 4K 120. It's all amazing, but it just overheats like crazy. So I feel like...
Does it shoot RAW?
Yeah, it does.
R5?
It does shoot RAW.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
yeah, I'm pretty sure it shoot RAW. But most of the time we just shoot C-Log. And even with C-Log, it just overheats. So yeah, I feel like technology might be one of the issue, but
Yeah. Who knows?
So like, what kind of camera are you planning to get if you have the money? Because a lot of people, they kind of want to get, like they say, why wouldn't anyone get the Blackmagic? But at the same time, why wouldn't you get the A7S III? Like, people are thinking of the cinema camera that they want to get, and they just start to compare a lot of cameras that are actually very different from each other. Because I feel like people who get the Sony A7S III is because you can both take photos and videos. And people compare it to Blackmagic. The Blackmagic is just not meant for photos, so like I feel like they all have their own place. And Sony is very aware of where is Blackmagic going, and they're very aware of where Panasonic is going. So
for sure,
they're just doing their thing, and you just get what you need.
I guess there are limitations to each, and it depends on what you want. If you're like very, very heavily video focused, then perhaps a Blackmagic sounds like a really good option. But also the A7S has autofocus. It has more features, I guess, than the Blackmagic, in terms of like you can shoot photos, you can shoot video with autofocus. You have you can record you have the IBIS, the image stabilizations, and these things. I guess like on a day-to-day on a daily basis, they are really, really practical, because these things are really, really helpful for run and gun filmmaking. And so the A7S sounds also like a really good option, but at the same time you have to consider the price difference, right? Like the A7S is like $3,500, right?
Oh yeah.
While the Blackmagic 6K is like $2,000. So there's a kind of like $1,500 difference, and with that amount of money, perhaps you can use to break out the Blackmagic and
and
for it to become more versatile. And
the thing is, Blackmagic has the issue with Blackmagic. I feel like it's the reason why it's cheap also, because the body is made of plastic. It's made of plastic. That's why you can afford it. The price is like $1,900 or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it was like a price like that. But with the Sony, like Sony is like $4,000 or something.
Yeah.
So like I feel like the price, but the Z Cam is like very cheap also. The Z Cam is like, I feel like they're just fighting red. Like it's like a cheap red, as they call it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is it the price of a Komodo, or
you mean is it a competition, or?
I mean, is it like is the price close to the price of the Komodo?
Oh man, Komodo is like $6,000. The Z Cam is probably like 1,000 something. There's nowhere near.
Oh really?
Yeah, it's nowhere near. The Komodo.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like the comparison is insane. I mean, the difference is insane. But the thing is, red color is just amazing. There's just no competition.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I feel like people who really appreciate colors, it's like there's not that much people who appreciate good colors. If you can just put, like most of these normal people, they just see like filters. They think that people just slap a filter on it and just
bro,
let it go.
This is what I had people telling me, like, nice filters, bro.
Yeah,
You're adding nice filters on your
God.
photos. I'm like, no, that's a very wrong way to put it. It's called color grading.
Nice filter, bro.